find it and I'll get it for you because we've referenced that several times here. So obviously we read the memo we're here today because we'd like to purchase additional new memory cards, and we're outside of the bounds of the capital improvement program, and so we're asking you to award that in regards to the fact that this particular memory card just barely was approved by the state. I'm not sure if you know, but in the last primary election, I spoke to Dee, and that morning of the primary election, 40% of our memory cards failed. Now, what that means is we had to reprogram them. So that took a time, and it got the poll workers off balance, and we don't want that to happen in a presidential election because we only have one piece of equipment that reprograms those cards. So Richard had to come back to the office, reprogram them all, and then get them out. Meanwhile, of course, people could still be voting, goes into the auxiliary bin. Nothing's ever at risk because we're paper ballots. But we want to ensure that things go smoothly throughout the election, and especially the presidential election. We actually had thought that maybe an anomaly had happened and maybe lightning had hit the warehouse or something, because to lose that many memory cards is, we just couldn't figure that out. We typically will lose 2 or 3, maybe 4 memory cards at the end of the night. And what that means is then we have to go in off the tape and we have to personally put all of that data in. So none of this is at risk through the election. It's more about the, ensuring that at the end of the night that we're giving results in a timely manner, and to get started in the morning that we're not having chaos at the polls right away. So we're requesting that we buy 126 because there are times when we will have back-to-back elections, school board, city primary, city, so we have to have enough cards to facilitate both of those elections. We talked to you, Chairman Sundberg, Meinert, and Hancock about purchasing new equipment, and I believe it started somewhere around 214, it got moved to 216, I'm not really sure, but at the time that we talked about new equipment was $680,000, and that was them day prices. So you can surely imagine that now it would be more than that and will continue to grow. We think it's a wise investment to spend the $40,000 now to put off what could be a very expensive capital project for the county. We think that the cards will do what they need to do. They're here today to show us them upstairs, but I'm going to have Roland just explain to you the difference in the memory cards and why we think this one will work so much better than the one that we're currently using.
Well, the current memory card is what's called a volatile system. The memory has to be constantly charged with a battery, otherwise it'll lose memory. It doesn't have any kind of surge protection in it, so a small electric current of sufficient voltage is able to basically erase the memory. So in every election that I've been involved in, we have had a memory card failure of at least 3. Sometimes there are as many as 7. And then, as the auditor referred to today, we lost 25 memory cards through a memory failure at the opening of the primary election. This new card is very similar in shape, but it's better designed. This card is a little flimsy in the back. It takes significant effort to be able to insert it or pull it out of a machine. That, of course, increases the likelihood of some kind of electric discharge passing between the person removing the card or inserting it. This card has a solid plastic holder at the end. It has a built-in surge protection. It is also based on a non-volatile a magnet-based memory system. And because of that, it doesn't take a charge nearly as well as this does. This is very conducive. This is not very conducive. It takes a lot of voltage to be able to write to this card. Not very much to read from it. And because of that, and the fact that it has a built-in surge protection, it's unlikely to pick up a charge, or at least why it's a lot less likely to pick up a charge than the old cards are. It's been used in one election. It's a brand new card. They just started manufacturing it in March. It's been used in one election in the state of Connecticut. There have been no reports out of Connecticut showing that there was any kind of failure with the card. A final report is not due until September, which would be kind of late for us to be able to make a report to you and purchase these cards. The cards are basically, there are 80 cards, a minimum of 80 cards right now in stock, but not 126. It's been selling pretty fast. People like this card because other jurisdictions have the same problem we've had with memory card failures. We know that we can get 80 cards for the general election, and if necessary, then pick up the additional cards after the general election. We need 80 cards in order to win the election. And then, as the auditor said, when we have back-to-back elections, then we need additional cards. Our plan is to use this card as the primary, and then to have these old cards pre-programmed as secondaries, so that if there is possibly a problem with this card, we will have a second card available immediately to be able to pass off to the precinct workers that have to put the card in. And it's a significant investment, but it should delay for a significant period of time purchase of a new election system. There are several on the market now. The OS system is not being manufactured. The OS X system, the second generation of our current equipment, is still being manufactured, although what I've heard is that it's going to be phased out as well. ES&S, another manufacturer of election equipment, they have several different kinds of vote tabulators, central count, precinct count. Unison, they have their own system. And Dominion, who has bought the intellectual property rights for the AccuVote, they have yet another system. So there are 3 basic systems, maybe 4 on the market right now. The minimum price of them is around $8,500 per machine, which is more than what we had estimated in our previous report. So the savings is, if we can delay this out for the full life expectancy of 15 to 20 years, would be significant for the county.
And I think it's important for you to understand that there are, through CIRA, our national organization through the Commissioner of Elections, there are lots of states that use the OS that really like the machines, that don't have any problems. And part of that could be because of the humidity here. So Florida doesn't have the same humidity that we have. So we've gone to all of the steps of running the humidifiers. We put them in static-free bags. We have the poll workers ground themselves to make sure before they pull it out that they're not, getting that charge. We've tried to look at ways to make sure that that doesn't happen. It still happens. So we're at the point where we think we really need to.
So let me just make sure that I understand this correctly. The way I just heard you say is that the trade-off is put $40,000 in and save $600,000. We'll extend it another 15, 20 years.
We could if it works, absolutely.
Is that what I heard?
Yeah, we purchased the machines in 2007. They first ran in 2008. We probably could put that out to 2020 something before another system would be required. Unless, if the law and everything remains the same. And of course, if the feds come in like they did with HAVA, or the state comes in and says, nope, you can't use that anymore, you got to use this other system, well then our hands are tied. But with the status quo legally, this system has been around for a long time. Probably was the first one authorized in the state. I don't see a problem with it. We should be able to delay it out for a significant period of time. There are more than 22,000 machines in current operation right now. Dominion has said that's enough to be able to have a viable market for the manufacturing of replacement parts. And when they came out and said, not only do we think that there's a viable market, but we're going to ensure the viability of that market by coming out with a card which should resolve the problems. which was the true fundamental flaw in that system. The active memory card, which required an electric charge to maintain memory, and did not have surge protection and was susceptible to electrostatic charge.
There are 63 precincts, so we have slightly more than that number of machines.
Well, we have absentees, you know,
That's-
residential
yeah.
will run probably 10 absentee machines upstairs at least. And then you always need to have a couple just in case.
So how many machines do we have all total?
Right now we have 80.
We have 80, and
Yes.
so you're asking for 80 cards, and that'd be one per machine, even if you're not using all the machines every time.
Right,
You're using almost all of them.
yep.
In a presidential election, we'll probably have 5 in reserve. In case there's a mechanical malfunction in a machine, we can just take the memory unit out and put a new one in, take the memory card out of the old unit, put it into the new one.
So this is not necessarily, and we're not looking at an oversupply right now. We're looking at a supply that is equal to the task that's going to be before us in the next months,
Yes.
at least to get us through
Yes.
November. And then next year, there are a lot of smaller elections. I think.
But you're authorizing, if you approve this, more than 126 that are in.
When will you get the other, we get the 80 and then will we get the rest of
I
it?
don't know, we're meeting with them today,
Okay.
and so I'm sure, I don't think it's gonna be very long before they can produce them. They're just like limited because everybody's dashing to the market to get the cards that are there for the presidential, I'm sure. And then you may be aware of that we'll have a small election in Eldridge, September 11th. So we're proposing to them just to use paper ballots because it's right before the presidential to save some money.
This might be a stupid question. After the presidential election's over and the cards have been used, what happens to them? I mean, what happens to the information on them? Are you able to reuse them in time?
Yes.
And what is that time frame from the time of the presidential election until you can erase them and use them again?
Well, after the canvass, we store the ballots. It's after the canvass, I believe.
So once the canvass is finished,
But then there's times like where we have a primary election, like for the city, where it'll be October 5th, and then the election will be November. And there's a timeline in there where we have to send them out to be programmed. And so we don't have enough time in between that 30 days to use it, get through the canvas, and then get them out to be programmed. Essentially, it would be really nice if down the road, if the county could look at hiring, this is just out there, someone to do our own programming, because we could do our own programming on our elections. We probably have the expertise to do that. It's just a body. So right now, we send all of our stuff out to be programmed because we don't have the ability.
Where do you send it, Roxanne?
Well, right now, we're using a different vendor. So if we go to this person, we would want to use this vendor. We've had an occasion in the past where someone did the ballots and someone did the programming, and there was, the ballot didn't come out right, and it was like, I don't care, you all did it, you figure it out. So they don't want to be in that predicament where one could be blaming the other for something that's happened.
So they'll all do it together, so everything's coordinated.
Yes, so who's ever doing the programming will be doing everything.
so
And we use Fiddler here locally, who does our printing.
using the old card could create many problems in this most important election. Is that right?
Well, it could cause a lot of chaos in the beginning of an election, and I can't tell you how important it is to start the day off right with the poll workers and the public. You don't want lines starting right out of the block with people. And obviously they can do the auxiliary, but a lot of people don't understand the auxiliary method. And so at a time when people aren't sure of the trust in elections, it's difficult. So we'd like to have a very smooth election.
And how fast do you think things will be reported? 2008 was a nightmare.
Well, 2008 was because they lost memory on memory cards. I would say, well, I've talked to the sheriff, And we're gonna work on getting additional posse out, picking up the cards, especially in the rural areas. We'll do extra out there so that they can get in quicker. And hopefully we'll have it by, we should be able, if we don't have any memory loss, we should have it by 10 to 10:10. We can do a memory card about every minute. But you have to remember, we have 63 to load.
It also depends on when the polls
Oh, right.
finally have their last voter pass through. They close at 9, but if there's a line, if there are 30 people in line, all 30 of those people have the right to vote. That could delay the process another 30 minutes. So,
And then they have to do all the write-ins and their tally list, and there's other stuff that has to happen in a large election, so it won't be 1 o'clock.
Okay, last.
Okay.
Any questions, or anything else that we can answer for you?
How should we, are there any questions from the public? Roxanna?
I'd like to address you all if you would allow me, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want us to move so you can sit here?
I can sit
Yeah,
here.
why don't you just,
Okay.
please?
Good morning. My name's Todd McGreevy. I live at 1370 Crestline Court in Bettendorf, Iowa. Thanks for the opportunity to address this important matter. I'll cut to the quick and then I'll give you some backup on this. I would implore you to table this measure until you make an arrangement with Auditor Moritz to include as part of the funding of these cards that random audits, hand count audits be conducted during this election between 3 to 6 precincts. What I heard just now from the auditor's office is that, yes, we could save $600,000 if we invest 40 now, and I completely laud that approach, 100%. But I also heard if the memory cards work, we could do that. We're maybe not learning from our own mistakes about these cards. I will read you from a black box report from blackboxvoting.org from 1995. It says the fundamental design of the Diebold precinct-based optical scan, which is called AVOS, and you'll see in the report that Roxanna gave you, that's what she addresses, includes the optical scan machine with an embedded system containing firmware and a removable medium, the memory card, which should contain only the ballot box, the ballot design, and the race definitions, but also contains a living thing, an executable program which acts on the vote data. Changing this executable program on the memory card can change the way the optical scan machine functions and the way the votes are reported. The system won't work without this program on the memory card, whereas we would expect to see vote data in a sealed, passive environment. This system places votes in an open, active environment. I could go down the list of all the things that the problems are with optical scan machines and voter cards and so forth. You're in a pickle with the static electricity. It's a problem. And yes, it is delaying the votes and so forth because of that hand entering of the ticker tape. But I would propose to you that this is an opportunity for the board to follow your oath of office and discharge your duties to the best of your ability. And the best of your ability includes guaranteeing the voters that they have a transparent voting process. And what I've shared with Auditor Moritz in the past is there is no downside to doing some random audits. And by audit, I'm not talking recount. I'm talking before the election judges sign the sealed envelope with the card and the tape and the ballots in it, that there is a hand count in that precinct of at least one race. There is no downside because if there is a problem and there is a discrepancy between what the tape and the card are telling you and what the hand count in public view says, then you've said, hey, we're transparent, we're going to fix the problem, we're going to figure it out. If there is no problem, then you have a very good, solid system. The other thing that I think is worth pointing out is that there is a 12-page detailed report that Auditor Moritz issued that I think some of you may not have even read yet based on what her comments were earlier today. I have not had a chance to review the whole document. It's extremely thorough. And I looked on the website, and I have not been able to find that on the website either. So the public should be availed of these matters in a much broader scope. Her request for funds came in on July 23rd. Here it is, you're going to vote on this on Thursday, less than 10 days later, we're pushing this through. I'm just asking you to put a caveat on the funds that you're allocating. I'm not saying don't do the memory cards. I'm not saying don't help Roxanna with what she needs to be dealt with. But put two caveats, a random audit and a commitment from the auditor's office that in a precinct, if one of these new memory cards fails, that there be a hand count of that ballot in that precinct if it fails. And granted, that would delay the reporting to the media. And I'm hearing lots of hand-wringing over this is a presidential election. We got to get this out quick. I would propose to you for the taxpayers of Scott County that the most important election are the ones that the seats you guys are in, the county sheriff, the various local offices, and that the taxpayers should be available to have a transparent process to know the results of that. Also, 2 other quick things. Roxanna was kind enough to send me the meeting minutes of the Iowa Board of Voting Equipment Examiners that she references in her memo to you on today's action item. And on May 10th, this board met for a total of 6 minutes. And in that 6 minutes, Examiner Phillips described his analysis about the memory card that you guys are voting on today. Examiner Phillips described his analysis of the proposed modification and discussed an email exchange he had with another examiner, Reisiger, the previous day about the standards the board is to apply during this voting system change approval request process. Examiner Phillips indicated he believes that the new memory in this new memory card is the best type of memory available, and indicated he believes this is a de minimis change to the voting system that should be approved by the examiners without testing. There was no further discussion. They voted, rubber stamped it, with no testing. And what I also heard stated here earlier was that we can't wait till September to make a decision after there's been more testing. And I don't understand why you can't wait till September to implement this, why you have to act so quickly. So lastly, I would close with, I did speak to some of you yesterday, and one of you shared with me that you don't believe that the concerns I have about voter fraud are accurate, that there is no voter fraud out there. And I would respectfully submit to you that many of us sat here and asked you about Agenda 21 and brought that up on numerous occasions, and were told by several of you that that didn't exist, and now we have a proclamation from our Governor Branstad against Agenda 21. So I would propose to you that we're not here against you. We're here to try and work with you, and we're trying to help educate you, and I would implore you to table this and get 2 caveats in the funding that I asked, that I just explained. Thank you.
I guess I can speak a little bit longer. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I don't disagree with Mr. McGreevy about random testing. As a matter of fact, in 2009, I was a supporter to the then Secretary Morrow of doing random testing, of picking a certain amount of percentage of voting equipment and looking at it and doing a random count. I think that that's a good way to show to the public that they can have as much faith in the system as we do. Unfortunately, that's set by statutory law that the state puts out, that we're not allowed to open the ballots and do any random testing. That being said, I'm not opposed to doing any type of random testing if the Secretary of State somehow says, because we're using new cards, we could do that. That has to come from the Secretary of State's office because it's a statutory law. And I will definitely call them today and see what that opportunity is. But I will tell you that I do not agree that that should happen the night of the presidential election, and this is why. It is an unofficial report. We all know that that's an unofficial report until the canvass is done. These people work 16 hours, some 17 hours. There's more likely to be a mistake after working 17 hours than clear minds and clear heads the next day or the day after. So if that were to occur, I think that that should occur when a new, fresh set of people can come in and hand count it. We know in the past that by hand counting there are more mistakes than a machine. And we've been through a recount with Mr. Elliott where we've done the recount. I feel very comfortable that that would happen. But once again, that's only something that could happen should the Secretary of State's office allow for us to do that. Now, can we do a random count if there's an anomaly at any one of the precincts? We can. So I believe that I'm not incorrect in saying if there was a memory card failure, we could. Am I right?
But if there was a memory card failure and we thought that that affected the outcome of the election,
we could do.
Then we can request that the board allow for an administrative recount.
And that would be the process. So I'm not opposed if there's any anomalies that happen, and I'm not opposed to talking to the Secretary of State because there are new memory cards about setting aside the opportunity to do some random testing, but not on the night of election. I think that that is asking way too much of someone that's worked 17 hours, and I also think that the likelihood of them staying on task would be in jeopardy. So if answer in regards to what you heard, I'd be happy to.
What's the downside of tabling this?
Oh, he did say to table it. The downside is why September? We have to submit our stuff in August to be programmed. Ballots have to be ready for UOCAVA voters by September 15th. Absentee balloting starts September 22nd. We get in line with the rest of the country to make sure that we're done. So our office has always been very diligent in making sure at the very first moment of opportunity to get the cards programmed, they're ready to roll, so that we don't have any problems, because then we'll have to, we have to do all the testing, and we have to have ballots ready and so forth.
And also the downside is there may not be cards.
Right,
Maybe
there's
sold
only
out.
80 right now. And they said, based on us coming today, that they would hold the 80 for us, knowing that we were going to be